Minna was known across the city as a successful businesswoman. She owned several companies, had a team of people who worked day and night for her, and lived in a large glass house on the top of the hill. From her wide balcony, she could see the whole city, the busy streets, and the glittering lights at night. Many people admired her. Some envied her, and almost everyone respected her for her achievements. Her days were always full. Meetings in tall buildings, business lunches in fancy restaurants, phone calls that never seemed to end. She had built her life on hard work, smart decisions, and careful planning. But with all her success, there was one thing she often felt, unsure about being a mother. Her daughter Leela was 7 years old, bright and curious. Minna loved her deeply, but her schedule meant she could not spend as much time with her as she wished. Leela's time was filled with private tutors, piano lessons, and art classes. Every activity was chosen to give her the best education money could buy. Minna thought this was enough to make her happy. It was a warm afternoon in early spring when something unusual happened. Minna returned home earlier than planned. A meeting had ended quickly, and she decided to surprise Leela. She imagined finding her in the garden painting or reading with one of her tutors. The car rolled into the driveway, and Minna stepped out, carrying her handbag and a folder of documents. She was about to head inside when she noticed movement near the tall garden wall. It was a corner of the property she rarely visited, as it was far from the main patio. Curious, she walked quietly toward the sound of soft voices. As she got closer, she saw Leela sitting on the grass, her shoes off, her hair slightly messy from the wind. Beside her sat a boy, perhaps 10 or 11 years old. His clothes were worn and slightly dirty. His shoes had loose soles, and his backpack looked old, with frayed straps. Minna almost called out to ask who he was, but she stopped when she saw what they were doing. The boy was holding a small stick and drawing shapes in the dirt. He was showing Leela how to write letters in a way Minna had never seen before. He drew them slowly, explaining each line, and Leela followed with her own stick, copying carefully. "See," the boy said with a smile, "if you connect these two lines like this, it becomes stronger. It looks better." Leela's face lit up. "I didn't know that. My tutor never told me." The boy laughed softly. "Sometimes people forget the simple ways. I like teaching the simple ways." Minna's hand froze on the side of a tree trunk. She watched silently. Her daughter, who usually got restless during her expensive lessons, was sitting completely focused. Her eyes followed every movement of the boy's stick in the dirt. Minna listened closer. "Where did you learn all this?" Leela asked. The boy looked up toward the sky as if thinking. "From books. I go to the library every day. I can't take the books home because I don't have a library card, but I read them while I'm there. Some are about history, some about science, and some about words." "But you don't go to school?" Leela asked, tilting her head. The boy's voice stayed calm. "Not right now. Things are a bit difficult, but I still like learning something." Inside, Minna shifted. She realized this was not just a random meeting between children. There was a story here, one she didn't know. The boy continued teaching, this time showing Leela how to count using small stones. He arranged them in rows and explained how grouping them made adding easier. Leela laughed when she understood and clapped her hands. "You're a good teacher," she said. "Thank you." The boy replied with a shy smile. "You're a good student." Minna felt torn. Part of her thought she should step in immediately. This was her daughter, and a stranger was sitting with her inside the garden. The other part of her wanted to see more. There was something pure about the scene. No expensive books, no polished classroom, no perfectly dressed tutor, yet Leela was learning with joy. She looked at the boy again. His face was calm, his eyes bright despite his worn-out clothes. His hands moved with care when he arranged the stones or drew in the dirt. Every word he spoke to Leela was patient and encouraging. For the first time in a long while, Minna wondered if money was the most important thing in learning. This boy had nothing, yet he was giving her daughter something valuable, a genuine love for knowledge. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of the flowers from the garden. Minna leaned against the tree, feeling a strange pull in her heart. She wanted to know the boy's name. She wanted to know where he came from. She wanted to understand why he was here, sitting in her garden, teaching her daughter with nothing but a stick and some stones. Leela picked up one of the stones and held it up. "If I give you 5 stones and then some more, how many will you have?" she asked, testing the boy. He grinned. 7, right, Leela laughed. "But if I take 3 away, 4, he answered without pause. Minna smiled faintly without realizing it. She had never seen her daughter this happy during a lesson. A sudden thought entered her mind. What if the boy needed help? He was clearly intelligent. With the right support, he could do so much more. But why was he here instead of at school? She decided to wait until they were done before stepping forward. She wanted the boy to finish what he was teaching. She wanted to see how this small meeting between 2 children would end. Before she made her presence known, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the grass. The boy stood up and dusted off his trousers. "I should go," he said. "It's getting late. Will you come back tomorrow?" Leela asked quickly. The boy hesitated, looking toward the garden wall. "Maybe, if I can." Minna stepped forward then, her shoes crunching lightly on the grass. Both children turned toward her. Leela smiled, while the boy's eyes widened with surprise. For a moment, no one spoke. Minna looked at him directly. In that silent second, she decided she would find out who he was and why he had come here. Something told her this meeting was only the beginning of a much bigger story. Minna stood in front of the boy, studying him closely. He didn't look scared, but his body was tense, as if ready to run if needed. His eyes were dark and alert, and there was a slight dirt mark on his cheek. His backpack strap had a tear that looked like it might break at any moment. "What is your name?" Minna asked, keeping her voice calm. The boy glanced at Leela before answering. "Samir." "And where do you live, Samir?" Minna asked. He looked toward the garden wall. "Not far from here." His voice was quiet but steady. Minna could tell he wasn't lying. But he also wasn't giving her a full answer. She didn't push further yet. Instead, she turned to her daughter. "Leela, how do you know him?" Leela smiled brightly. "I met him last week. I was playing near the wall and I heard someone reading out loud on the other side. It was Samir. He was reading from a book and I asked him what it was. We started talking and he taught me some new words. He comes sometimes when he can." Mina's eyebrows rose slightly. "And you didn't tell me?" "I wanted to," Leela said quickly. "But I thought maybe you'd say no. He's really nice, Mama, and he's a very good teacher." Mina looked back at Samir. "Why do you come here?" He met her eyes for a moment before answering. "Because she listens, and I like teaching. I also like having someone to talk to." There was something in his tone that made Mina's heart soften, though she didn't show it. She motioned for both children to walk with her toward the patio. She wanted to know more before deciding anything. The 3 of them sat at the small table near the garden. A servant brought juice and biscuits. Leela eagerly poured juice for Samir and herself. While Minna simply observed, Samir thanked her politely. Before taking a sip, "Do you go to school?" Minna asked again. He shook his head. "Not now. I used to. But things changed. My father went away for work, and my mother—" His voice trailed off. He picked up a biscuit, but didn't eat it right away. Minna didn't push. She could tell this was not an easy subject. Instead, she asked, "So you spend your time at the library?" Samir nodded. "Every morning. They let me sit there as long as I behave. I read books about everything: numbers, words, history, animals. Then I try to remember as much as I can. Sometimes I help other children who don't understand something." Leela leaned forward. "Mama, he taught me how to add using stones. It's so easy now. I wish my tutors taught like that." Minna hid a small smile. It was strange hearing her daughter praise a boy who had no fancy training or expensive education. But she couldn't deny the happiness in Leela's voice. "What about your family?" Minna asked carefully. Samir hesitated before answering. "It's just me and my mother. We stay in a small place near the old market. She works at a stall there." selling fruit when she can get it. Sometimes we don't have enough, so I try to help her. Minna felt a quiet heaviness in her chest. She could see the dignity in his eyes despite his situation. He wasn't asking for anything. He wasn't looking for pity. He was simply telling her the truth. "Why do you like teaching?" she asked. Samir's answer came quickly. "Because I think everyone should know things. If you know something, you can do more in life. And teaching someone else makes you remember better too." Leela grinned. "That's why I want him to keep coming. He makes learning fun." Minna sat back in her chair. She was not used to strangers in her home, especially ones who came without permission. But she could see that Samir was different. He had no bad intentions. He was respectful, honest, and clearly cared about learning. Still, she needed to be careful. "Samir, do your mother know you come here?" He shook his head. "No. She thinks I'm just reading at the library. If I tell her I'm in a big house like this, she might worry." Minna nodded slowly. She understood. His mother would not know her or her daughter, and might be concerned about him meeting strangers. The sun was lower now, and the shadows were stretching across the garden. Samir stood, picking up his old backpack. "I should go. My mother will finish work soon." Leela stood too. "Can you come tomorrow?" she asked hopefully. Samir looked at Minna, unsure if he should answer. Minna paused for a moment before saying, "If you come, you must come through the front gate. I will speak with your mother first. No more climbing walls." Samir's eyes widened slightly. "You want to meet my mother, yes?" Minna said firmly, "If you are going to teach my daughter, I want her to know who you are. And I want to know her too." He nodded slowly. "All right, I can bring her." Minna gave him a small smile. "Good. Then we'll see you both tomorrow afternoon." Samir gave a polite goodbye, then walked toward the gate at the side of the property. Leela waved until he disappeared from view. When he was gone, Minna turned to her daughter. "Leela, I understand why you like learning from him, but we must make sure everything is safe and proper. That's why I'll meet his mother." Leela nodded quickly. "I know, Mama, but you'll like him even more when you see how smart he is." That night, after Leela had gone to bed, Minna found herself thinking about the boy. She thought of his worn clothes, his calm voice, and the way he explained things with patience. She thought of how her daughter had laughed during the lesson. It had been a long time since she had heard that kind of joy in Lila's voice while studying. She also thought about his life. No school, a mother who worked at a stall, a boy spending hours in a library, memorizing what he could. There was something admirable in that, and Minna couldn't ignore it. The next afternoon came quickly. Leela waited near the front gate, dressed in a bright dress, holding a small notebook she wanted to show Samir. Minna stood nearby, watching the street. At exactly the time they had agreed, Samir appeared, walking beside a woman carrying a basket of fruit. She was dressed in simple clothes, her hair neatly tied back. Her eyes looked cautious, but kind. "Mama, this is Samir's mother," Leela said happily. The woman gave a polite nod. "Good afternoon. My name is Amina." Minna stepped forward and extended her hand. "I'm Minna. Thank you for coming. I wanted to speak with you about your son." Samir looked between the two women, hoping the conversation would go well. Leela held her notebook tightly, ready for another lesson. Minna didn't know it yet, but this meeting was about to change more than just her daughter's education. The afternoon sun lit the front yard as Minna and Amina faced each other. The quiet hum of the street was in the background, but Minna's attention was on the woman in front of her. Samir's mother stood with a gentle but firm posture, her hands resting on the handle of the basket filled with fresh fruit. "I hope you don't mind that I invited you here," Minna said with a polite tone. "I wanted to meet you before allowing Samir to spend more time with my daughter." Amina nodded slowly. "I understand. I would want the same for my child." She glanced at Samir, who stood close to her side, then looked at Leela, who was beaming with excitement. "Your son has been teaching Leela," Minna explained. "She speaks highly of him. I was surprised to see how focused she was during his lesson. I have tutors for her, but she never looked that happy while studying." Amina's eyes softened a little. Samir has always liked helping others learn. Even when he was in school, he would stay after class to help the younger children. But since we cannot afford school right now, he spends his days at the library. Minna studied her face. There was no bitterness in Amina's voice, only quiet strength. She could see where Samir had learned his calm nature. I am not against the idea of him teaching Leela, Minna continued, but it must be safe and proper. I would like your permission for him to visit here a few times a week, under my supervision. He can teach her, and in return, I can make sure he also gets resources to continue his own learning. Samir's eyes widened. He glanced at his mother as if to ask without words. If this could really happen, Amina hesitated. That is generous. But I don't want my son to feel like he is taking charity. He will be happy to teach your daughter if she enjoys it. But please, no payment is necessary. Minna smiled faintly. This is not charity. It is an exchange. He helps my daughter learn, and I help him learn. I think that is fair. Amina considered this for a moment. Then she nodded. If Samir is comfortable with it, I have no objection. I am, Samir said quickly, his voice full of eagerness. I want to. Leela clapped her hands in excitement. Then it settled. Samir, you can start today. Minna laughed softly at her daughter's enthusiasm. Let's give them some time together, she said, inviting them inside. The group walked through the tall front gates and into the wide garden. The scent of flowers filled the air, and the sound of a small fountain bubbled in the corner. Minna asked a servant to bring tea for the adults while the children settled on the grass. Under a large tree, Samir took out a small notebook from his backpack. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, short notes, and small drawings. Leela leaned closer, curious. What's this? These are the things I've been learning from books. Samir explained. I write them down so I can remember. Today, I want to show you a story I read about a clever bird that solved problems. To get water. As he spoke, he drew quick sketches in the dirt, showing a bird dropping pebbles into a jar to raise the water level. Lila's eyes widened. That's so smart. I didn't know birds could do that. They can, Samir said with a smile. Nature is full of smart solutions. If you pay attention, you can learn from it. Minna watched from the patio while sipping her tea. Amina sat beside her, her hands folded in her lap. Both women remained silent for a while, listening to the children's voices. Your son is remarkable. Minna said finally. Amina gave a small smile. He has always been curious. I can't give him much, but I told him that knowledge is free. If you are willing to search for it, he took that to heart. Do you plan for him to return to school? Minna asked gently. Yes, if we can manage it. Amina replied. Right now, every coin goes toward rent and food. But I know he deserves more. Minna thought quietly. She could easily arrange for Samir to attend a good school, but she knew she couldn't offer it yet without making Amina feel uncomfortable. For now, the lessons with Leela would be the start. Under the tree, the lesson shifted from stories to numbers. Samir used fallen petals as counters, showing Leela how to group them for multiplication. Leela laughed when she got the answer right and gave him a high five. When the sun began to set, Amina stood to leave. We should go, she said. Thank you for inviting us. Before they left, Minna handed Samir a small stack of fresh notebooks and pencils. For your notes, she said simply. I know you like to write things down. Samir's eyes lit up, and he accepted them with both hands. Thank you. I'll use them well. As they walked away, Leela stood at the gate waving until they disappeared down the street. Minna noticed how light her daughter's steps were when she came back inside. That night, Minna sat in her study thinking about the day. She realized that what had started as a chance meeting near the garden wall was already becoming something bigger. Leela was learning in a way she had never seen before, and Samir was finally getting a chance to share what he knew. Over the next week, Samir came to the house 3 times. Each visit brought new lessons: how plants grow, how to read maps, how to solve puzzles using logic. Leela absorbed everything eagerly, asking questions and trying to teach back what she had learned. Minna noticed that Samir's confidence was growing too. He no longer seemed shy when speaking to her, and he began greeting the household staff politely whenever he arrived. One afternoon, after a lesson about constellations, Leela ran to Minna and said, "Mama, Samir says we can see the Orion belt tonight. Can we stay up to look?" Minna smiled. "Yes, we can." That evening, the three of them sat in the garden under a blanket, looking at the stars. Samir pointed out the shapes in the sky, telling short stories from different cultures about them. Leela listened with wide eyes, while Minna found herself learning things she had never known. She realized something important to education was not only about books and exams. It was also about curiosity, sharing, and inspiring each other to keep asking questions. When Samir and his mother left that night, Minna watched them walk away and thought about the path ahead. She didn't know exactly where this new friendship would lead, but she knew one thing for certain: she wanted to see it continue. The days passed quickly. Samir's visits became part of the routine. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday afternoon, he would arrive with his small backpack, ready to teach Leela something new. In return, Minna always made sure he had fresh notebooks, good pens, and sometimes books she thought he would enjoy. One Thursday morning, before Samir's usual visit, Minna decided to go to the old market. She wanted to see where Samir and his mother worked. Leela begged to come along, and Minna agreed. They drove to the busy part of the city where narrow streets were filled with colorful stalls, the smell of fresh fruit, and the sound of shopkeepers calling out to customers. As they walked through the market, Minna spotted Amina's stall. It was a small wooden table with baskets of apples, oranges, and bananas. The fruit looked fresh, but there wasn't much of it. Amina stood behind the stall, arranging the produce neatly. She wore a simple scarf and had a focused look on her face. "Mama, there's Samir," Leela whispered, pointing. Samir was standing beside his mother, carefully weighing apples for a customer. He noticed Minna and Leela and gave a small wave. Minna walked over and greeted Amina warmly. "What a surprise," Amina said with a smile. "I did not expect to see you here." "I wanted to see your stall," Minna replied. "It's lovely." Before Amina could respond, a loud voice interrupted them. "Amina, you still owe for last week's space. When will you pay?" Minna turned to see a tall man with a clipboard standing a few steps away. His tone was stern, and his arms were crossed. Amina's expression tightened. "I told you. I will pay after today's sales," she said calmly. The man shook his head. "I can't wait any longer. If you don't pay now, I'll have to give your stall to someone else." Leela looked worried, and Samir clenched his fists. "Please, sir," Samir said quietly. "We will have the money soon." The man didn't respond kindly. "Soon is not good enough. There are other sellers waiting." Minna watched the exchange, her mind turning. She didn't want to embarrass Amina by stepping into directly, but she also didn't want to watch their stall be taken away. She stepped forward. "How much does she owe?" The man looked at her suspiciously. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I might be able to help," Minna said firmly. Amina quickly shook her head. "No, Minna, you have already done enough. We will manage." Minna respected her pride, but she also knew losing the stall would hurt both Amina and Samir. "Consider it a business arrangement," Minna said gently. "You keep your stall, and in return, you supply fruit to my house every week. That way, it's not charity. It's payment for your work." Amina hesitated. Samir looked at his mother, silently urging her to accept. Finally, Amina nodded. "If it is for fruit delivery, then yes." The man agreed to take the payment, and Minna settled the bill on the spot. Once he left, Amina looked at her with gratitude. "Thank you. You have given us more time." "It's not a gift," Minna reminded her. "I will expect the best fruit at my door each week." Amina smiled faintly. "You will have it." Leela tugged at Samir's sleeve. "Come to our house early today," she whispered. "I have something to show you." Later that afternoon, Samir arrived with his backpack, curious about Lila's secret. She led him to the garden where she had set up a small learning corner with a mat, some books, and a box of stones for counting games. "It's for our lessons," Lila explained proudly. So we can sit here every time you come, Samir's face lit up. It's perfect. They began their lesson, working through a puzzle book Minna had bought. Samir explained each problem patiently, and Leela solved them with growing confidence. Minna watched from the patio, feeling a quiet satisfaction. But the calm didn't last. A few days later, Minna received a call from one of her staff who sometimes visited the market. "Madam, there was trouble near Amina's stall today," the voice said. Mina's heart sank. What happened? Some men tried to take the stall while she was away delivering fruit. Samir was there, and he stood in their way. Minna didn't wait to hear more. She took Leela and drove straight to the market. When they arrived, she saw a small crowd gathered near the stall. Samir was standing with his hands clenched, facing two men who looked impatient. "What is going on?" "Here," Minna asked. Her voice firm. One of the men replied, "This stall is overdue on fees again. The boy here says we can't move it. That's because it's already under agreement to supply my home." Minna said sharply, "If you have an issue, you speak to me directly." The men exchanged glances, then muttered something and walked away. The crowd slowly dispersed. Amin arrived moments later, out of breath. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I was delayed, and when I came back, I heard there was trouble." "You don't need to apologize," Minna assured her. "But we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. I think it's time we formalize our arrangement so no one can take this stall away from you." Amina nodded slowly, realizing Minna was right. That evening, Minna sat in her study with a notebook. She made a plan to help Amina's business grow without making it feel like charity. She would connect her with suppliers, help her with better pricing, and even design a small sign for the stall. Samir, unaware of all the details, simply felt relieved that the stall was safe for now. But he also felt something else: responsibility. He had stood up for his mother today, and it felt good to protect what little they had. When he came for the next lesson with Leela, he was quieter than usual. Leela noticed and asked, "Are you all right?" "Yes," he said with a small smile. "I'm just thinking about how to help my mother more." Minna, overhearing from the patio, thought the same thing: had to help them both without breaking the trust and pride that made them who they were. She knew the next step in their lives was coming, and it would change everything. The morning after the market trouble, Minna sat at her desk with a cup of tea and a notebook. She kept thinking about Amina's stall and Samir's quiet determination. It was clear to her that helping them a little would not be enough. They needed something lasting, something that would allow them to stand on their own without worrying every week about losing their spot. She began writing down ideas. At the top of the page she wrote, "How to help without charity." She knew that pride was important to Amina. If it felt like a gift, she might refuse. But if it was a fair opportunity, she would accept it. Mina's plan had to respect that. By mid-morning, she had a clear plan. She would offer Amina a small partnership. Minna would invest in expanding the fruit stall into a proper shop at the market, and in return, Amina would supply her home with the best produce and share part of the profit. This way, it would be business, not a handout. That afternoon, when Amina came to deliver fruit, Minna invited her into the sitting room. Samir and Leela were in the garden, laughing over a lesson about different countries and their flags. "I've been thinking," Minna began, "about how we can make sure your stall is safe and your income is steady." Amina looked cautious. "You have already done much for us." "This is not charity," Minna assured her. "It's a business proposal. I want to help you turn the stall into a small shop. I will provide the starting funds, but you will manage it. You will supply my home, and I will take a share of the profit in return. This way, it's an investment, not a gift." Amina's eyes widened. "A shop? That would be a big step." "Yes," Minna agreed. "It will mean more space, more customers, and better prices from suppliers. But it will also mean more responsibility. I believe you can handle it." Amina hesitated, then slowly nodded. "If it is truly a partnership, then I accept." Minna smiled. "Good. We will start planning tomorrow." When Samir heard the news later that day, his face lit up. "A real shop. Mama, That means we can sell more fruit. Maybe we can even sell vegetables too. Amina laughed softly, one step at a time. Over the next week, Minna and Amina worked side by side to prepare. For the shop, they visited suppliers, compared prices, and looked at different locations in the market. Minna handled the paperwork while Amina chose the best produce to sell. Samir came along whenever he could, helping carry baskets and learning how to weigh and check fruit for quality. Leela was excited too. She told everyone she met about Samir's new shop and even made a little drawing of it, with colorful signs and smiling customers. One evening, as Minna sat in the garden, Samir approached her with his notebook. "Can I show you something?" he asked. "Of course," Minna replied. He opened to a page filled with neat handwriting. "I've been keeping track of ideas for the shop. Things like keeping the fruit in the shade so it stays fresh, offering small paper bags for customers, and writing prices on a board so people can see them easily." Minna read through his notes, impressed. "These are good ideas, Samir. You think like a businessman." Samir smiled shyly. "I just wanted to do well. If the shop does well, my mother will worry less." The following week, the new shop opened. It was small but bright, with neatly arranged baskets and a clean sign above the door that read "Fresh Choice." The first day brought many customers, some curious, others already loyal from Amina's days at the stall. Minna visited in the afternoon with Leela. She watched as Samir weighed fruit for a customer, spoke politely, and handled money with care. Amina stood nearby, greeting people with a warm smile. "This is wonderful," Minna said as she looked around. "You've made it welcoming. It feels different," Amina admitted. "I never thought I would have something like this." "You earned it," Minna replied. "I just helped open the door." As the days passed, the shop became a familiar stop for many people in the market. Samir split his time between helping his mother and teaching Leela. Their lessons now sometimes included real-life examples from the shop, calculating change, planning which fruits to order based on the season, and keeping simple records. One Saturday afternoon, after finishing a lesson on measuring weight, Samir looked thoughtful. "Minna, can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said. "Do you think I could go back to school soon? I want to keep helping my mother, but I also want to learn more than I can from the library." Minna smiled. "Yes, I do, and I think we can arrange it so you can do both." She didn't tell him yet, but she had already been making calls to a nearby school that offered flexible schedules for working students. If everything went as planned, Samir would start the next term. That night, Minna sat by her window, looking out at the city lights. She thought about how much had changed in such a short time. A boy she had first seen teaching her daughter with a stick in the dirt was now helping run a shop and preparing to return to school. Leela was learning more than she ever had before, and Minna herself felt something she hadn't expected: joy in seeing someone else's life improve. She knew there would still be challenges. Business could be unpredictable, and school would not be easy after a break. But she also knew that Samir and Amina had the strength to face them, and deep down, she had a feeling that this was only the beginning. The next morning, the city was covered in a soft golden light. The air felt fresh after the light rain during the night. Minna woke up earlier than usual. She sat by her window with a cup of tea, thinking about everything that had happened in the last few weeks. A boy who had nothing but his will to learn had changed the way she looked at life. A daughter who once struggled to focus now learned with excitement. And a mother who once believed money solved everything now understood the value of kindness. Today was an important day. Minna had invited reporters, school principals, and city officials to a gathering at her house. She wanted to make an announcement that would surprise many people. By mid-morning, the garden was full of guests, cameras flashed, and curious voices filled the air. Leela stood near the fountain, holding the hand of the boy who had become her friend. His name, now known to everyone in the house, was Amir. He wore clean clothes Minna had bought for him. His hair was neatly trimmed, and his eyes shone with quiet confidence. When the crowd settled, Minna stepped forward to speak. She wore a simple white dress, not her usual expensive designer clothes. She wanted her message to be clear, without distraction. "Thank you all for coming," she began. Her voice was calm, but carried through the space. "A few weeks ago, I came home to find my daughter being taught in the garden. Her teacher was not one of the tutors I had hired. It was this young boy standing here today. His name is Amir, and he has taught me something more valuable than any business lesson I have ever learned." The guests leaned forward, listening. Some were already exchanging glances, wondering what she would say next. "Amir is homeless," Minna continued. "He has no large home, no private tutor, and no fancy books. But he has something rare, a love for learning and a desire to share knowledge with others. He taught my daughter without asking for anything in return, and that kindness has inspired me to act." She paused, looking at Amir. His cheeks turned slightly pink, but he held his head high. "From this day forward," Minna announced, "I am starting a learning program for underprivileged children in our city. We will provide books, lessons, and safe places to study. Amir will be the first student and also the first youth teacher in this program. I will make sure no child who wants to learn will be left without the chance." A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Faster. A few people clapped. And soon the sound grew louder until the whole garden was filled with applause. Leela ran up to her mother and hugged her tightly. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. Minna hugged her back, her eyes warm with emotion. After the announcement, reporters asked Amir questions. They wanted to know how he had learned so much. He told them about spending hours in the public library, reading everything he could find. He spoke about how learning made him feel free, even when life was difficult. Minna watched proudly. This was not just about helping Amir. It was about changing how the city saw children like him. Too often, they were ignored. But today, Amir stood in front of everyone, not as someone to pity, but as someone to admire. In the afternoon, as the guests left, Minna sat with Amir and Leela under the old oak tree. The sun filtered through the leaves, making soft patterns on the ground. Amir looked thoughtful. "Are you sure you want me to be part of this program as a teacher?" he asked. "Yes." Minna replied. "You have a gift, Amir. You know how to explain things in a way that makes people listen. That is something many teachers spend years trying to learn." Amir smiled, a little shyly. "I just wanted to help. And that," Minna said, "is why you are perfect for this." Later that evening, Minna received dozens of messages. Some were from wealthy friends offering donations. Others were from parents asking how to enroll their children. Even the mayor sent a note praising her idea. But Minna knew this was only the beginning. The real work was yet to come. She would need to find spaces for the learning centers, gather books, and hire more people like Amir who cared about teaching. As the night grew quiet, Amir looked up at the stars from the guest room window. For the first time in years, he felt safe. Not just safe from the cold streets, but safe in the knowledge that he belonged somewhere. And Minna, sitting in her study, made a silent promise. This was no charity project for a season. This was a lifelong commitment. The city didn't know it yet, but a single afternoon in a garden had planted the seeds for something that would grow far beyond the tall walls of her home. 2 months passed since Minna's announcement. The learning program had become more than just an idea. It was now alive and growing. In the city, 3 new learning centers had opened, each filled with books, clean desks, and bright spaces where children could study. Volunteers came from schools, colleges, and even from Minna's own company to teach. Amir's role was special. Twice a week, he taught basic reading and math to younger children. His teaching style was patient, and he explained everything in a way that made even the shyest child speak up. Many of the children admired him, not just for his knowledge, but because he understood their struggles. Leela often joined him. Sometimes she helped by reading stories aloud. Other times, she sat quietly and watched Amir teach. The bond between them had only grown stronger. One afternoon, Minna visited one of the centers. The sound of children laughing and reading filled the air. She found Amir in the corner, showing a group of children how to solve a puzzle. He noticed her and smiled. "You've made this place full of life," she said after the children left. Amir shook his head. It's not just me. It's everyone who believed this was possible. You started it. No, Minna replied. You started it the day you decided to teach my daughter. A week later, an unexpected letter arrived at Mina's home. It was from the city's education board. They wanted to honor both her and Amir at a public event for their work in helping underprivileged children. Minna agreed, but she made one request that the event focus more on the children than on her. The day of the event, the city hall was filled with people. The stage was decorated with banners showing children reading and smiling. The mayor spoke, first praising the program for giving hope to many families. Then, he called Minna and Amir to the stage. Minna spoke briefly about the importance of education, but her main words were for Amir. This young man taught me that true change begins with small acts of kindness, she said. He had no resources, no comfort, but he had a heart full of determination, and that has changed the future for many children. When it was Amir's turn to speak, he looked at the crowd, his voice steady. I used to think my life would always be about surviving one day at a time, but now I know that learning can change everything. I'm not here just because I worked hard. I'm here because someone believed in me. I hope we can all believe in the children who need us most. The audience clapped for a long time. Some people even stood, applauding. Amir's eyes were bright, not from pride alone, but from the feeling that his words had truly reached people. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Amir what his dream was now. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I want to become a teacher not just here, but in places where children have no schools at all. The reporter smiled, writing down his words. Minna, hearing this, silently promised herself she would help him achieve that dream. That evening, back at the house, Leela ran up to Amir. You were amazing today, she said. Amir laughed softly. I was nervous, but you still did it, she replied. That's what matters. The three of them had dinner together in the garden, under strings of warm lights. The air was cool, and the sound of crickets filled the background. It was a peaceful moment, the kind Minna now valued more than any business success. As they talked, Minna shared some news. I've decided to create a scholarship program for children in our centers. If they want to go to university, we will help them get there. Amir looked surprised. That's going to change so many lives. That's the plan. Minna replied with a smile. And I want you to be one of the first scholarship students when the time comes. Amir didn't know what to say. For a long time, his dreams had been small because he didn't think big ones were possible. But now, sitting here with Minna and Leela, he realized his future was wide open. Months later, the program expanded to 5 more neighborhoods. Minna spent more time visiting the centers than in her office. Amir became known as a role model for young people. Leela grew into a confident student, always eager to learn and help others. One evening, Minna stood in the garden where everything had begun. She remembered that first moment when she had seen Amir teaching her daughter, the confusion she felt, and the way it had changed her life. Amir walked up beside her. Thinking about the past, he asked, Yes, she said, and about the future. I think it's going to be brighter than we imagine. They stood there quietly, watching the sky turn deep blue as the first stars appeared. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could always return, sometimes in the form of a boy with nothing but a love for learning.